had heard that there was some opportunity in the Barabo area, so they came up here. August opened up a small shop here, a small harness making shop here in Barabo, but Barabo was kind of a fledgling town. Back then there wasn't really a lot going on here. So he started looking for other places to move his family, and the town of McGregor, Iowa popped up. McGregor, Iowa at that time was a pretty important town because it was located right on the Mississippi River, and a lot of river traffic was how they moved a lot of goods and services back then before there was a lot of railroads or highways or roads. McGregor had a huge grain elevator there where they could move grain shipments at one of the first bridges across the Mississippi River, and one of the first ferries was built there between Prairie and McGregor, Iowa. So again, it was a pretty bustling town at that point, so August decided to move his family down to McGregor, Iowa. They stayed there for about 11 years, and 4 of the brothers and the 1 daughter were, 4 of the 7 brothers and 1 daughter were born in McGregor, Iowa. So Alf T, Charles, John, and Henry were all born in McGregor, Iowa, along with the lone daughter, Ida. She was the youngest. And actually, she lived the longest, too. She ended up to live to be about 76 years old, which was pretty old back in that time. Most of the Ringling boys had died long before that. I think the youngest one to pass away was Henry. He was only about 48 or 49 years old when he passed away. The other ones were in their 50s and 60s. John was the oldest of the brothers. He passed away when he was 70. So we don't consider 70 very old now, but back then, the life expectancy was probably about 45 or 50 years. So 70 was pretty old back then. I'm getting close to 70, so I don't think it's old, but we did back then. And that's where the kids got their first introduction into the circus. That's where they saw their first circus was in McGregor, Iowa. There was a traveling steamboat that traveled down the Mississippi River and was stopping at certain towns to give a show, and they happened to stop in McGregor, Iowa. And of course the kids ran down to the waterfront and watched them unload all the wagons and the animals and whatever. And Al, which was the oldest, just offhandedly remarked to his brother, says, "Boy, wouldn't it be neat if we started our own circus one day?" You know, how kids are and whatever. We kind of know what went on in McGregor, because Alf T, one of the brothers, wrote a book about good time in McGregor, so we read that. Of course, we know a little bit about what happened down there. So after everything was unloaded, the kids went home. But just so happens on August opened up a harness shop in McGregor as well. And just so happens one of the circus employees stopped in August shop to get some harness work done. And August looks at the harness and says, it's a really easy job. Let's come back and now we're up and done for you. And so it comes back an hour later, looks at the work and says, "Good, how much do I owe you?" And he says, it was such an easy fix, I'm not even going to charge you. It's going to take me longer to write out the bill than it did to do the work. Just take it and hopefully it all works out for you. But the employee felt a little guilty about kind of getting something for nothing. So he said, "How about if I give you some circus tickets? I'll give you some comp tickets to the circus, and you take your family, and hopefully that will cover whatever the cost of the repair was." So August did that. He took his family down to see the circus, and unsurprisingly, the kids all fell in love with the circus, and they decided they were going to start their own circus one day. So they got together and they started learning different talents, like juggling or balancing acts, or they learned how to play instruments, both Al and both Charles and Al T learned how to play several instruments, and John and kind of like the jokesters, kind of the clown kind of people, so it was more like a little vaudeville act more than a real circus. And after they started practicing for a while, they said, well, maybe we should have some little public shows. Maybe we could just have a little show for the neighbor kids, you know, and see how it goes, and that would be a good way to hone our skills. So they put up, they made, like a little tent, that was over the clothesline or whatever, and made some little benches, and they invited the neighbor kids to come in, and of course, the whole idea is that obviously you become successful and make some money, but of course kids didn't have money back then, but we said, what can we charge the kids so that we could, generate some money? So they found out, so they started charging sewing pins. So you had to have 5 sewing pins to get into the little Ringling Brothers circus. And why sewing pins? Well, they found out from the shopkeepers that if they gathered up enough of them, they could trade them into the hardware store and they would get money back for them. So they would do it in barter system. And so that's what they did. Of course, after a while, I'm sure, the mother looks at her sewing kit and said, I'm really giving low on sewing pins. I'm going to have to go to the hardware store and buy some. So she probably bought her own pins back. But anyways, and that's another, excuse me, side issue is, of course, the father, the husband was usually the one that worked outside of the home and brought in the income and would give the wife little money for the budget to run the household. But of course, most women were pretty sharp. They didn't spend it all. They stashed a little bit in where they stashed it in their sewing kits because they knew the father would never look at that. Of course, the kids knew where the money was. They knew if they took the money, they would get caught. So they did the sewing kits. And so that's where the term pin money came from. That's where they kept their little stash of money in their sewing kits. But anyway, so the kids kept going and kept going and going. And Al, when he was a little bit older, he signed himself out onto some of the small circuses in the area so he could the ropes. And so by the time the family grows to the size of 7 sons and 1 daughter, so now they have 8 kids plus themselves to feed, so 10 people. And McGregor's just not cutting it anymore. The business is kind of declining because now there's railroads and there's roads and there's other towns and there's sprouting up, and so he's saying, God, where can I move my family again to find enough income to support my family? And Barabo pops back up, and of course, in intervening 11 years, Barabo starts growing, and of course, it's in a very kind of a strategic location. It's about halfway between Chicago and excuse me, Minneapolis, so it's a very strategic location for like a train company or something to stop. The Barabo River is a very fast-moving river. It drops about 40 feet between West Barabo and Barabo, so good river to build a mill on. So at one point there was about 7 mills on the Barabo River. They made a whole variety of different things. They made woolen mills and linen mills and flour mills and lumber mills and all these different kinds of businesses. So that attracted people to Barabo either to work in the mills or provide the raw materials, or somebody to buy them. So that generated a lot of traffic in Barabo. Second reason I mentioned before was the railroad. When the railroad finally figured out a way to get to the bluffs and get farther. The Chicago and Northwestern Railroad realized that this would be a good place to build a depot. So there was a huge depot. If you drive down to Lynn Street, you'll still see the old passenger depot, the big two-story structure, which is currently under renovation by the Sauk County Historical Society. Eventually, there was three depots here in Baraboo. There was a freight depot, there was a passenger depot, and eventually when the circus became larger, there was a circus depot, so they had to their train cars back and forth. So about 20 trains came in and out of Baraboo every day, so that brought a huge amount of people into Baraboo. Third reason would be when Wisconsin became a state, they had to divide the state up into counties, and each county had to have a county seat, and Baraboo was designated the county seat for Sauk County. So that's why we have the nice courthouse downtown. You see the kind of nice marble courthouse that you don't really see in the county side. So that's where people had to do all the real estate, transfers, and the jail was there and whatever. So that, again, brought people in and out of Baraboo. And I'm sure there was other reasons, but the other big reason was in those intervening years, some of the Ringling relatives also moved up here to Baraboo. So the Mollers and the Golmars, which were first cousins to the Ringling, moved up here to Baraboo. The Golmars started their own circus here in Baraboo, and the Mollers were wagon makers, so they eventually made up some wagons for the circus. So August looks at all these things and says, I think I moved my family back to Baraboo, and so they moved back up here. Of course, the kids now, or most of them are all adults by now, with the exception of Henry. Henry was only about 14 years old when they moved back up here. And the kids got up here and they looked around and they said, God, I think this is as good a place as any to start the circus. So that's what they did. So they, the first performance here was in 1884. They hooked up with veteran showman Yankee Robinson for their first year, just to make sure they were on the right track and got some help. So they started out as just a dinky dog, trade wagon circuit. And they traveled all around the little towns around here. Struggled mightily. They certainly were not, the greatest show on earth at that point. They were just one of many little circuses and things that were performing in town. But Otto, who was kind of like the finance guy, kind of handled all the money and investments and whatever. He was very shrewd, and they bought up little circuses in the area until they got bigger and bigger. And when they finally got their first elephant, I think about 8 years into their show, that kind of helped them out. And when they finally got big enough to move their circus by train, that is really kind of what put them on the map in a way. They were able to get to a lot more cities and bigger cities to make more money. And so by the late 1890s, they were wealthy enough to be able to build homes for their families. In the past, they would have to live on the train, and they would have to live in rented quarters for the few months that the circus was not traveling. And of course, they're starting to have families and don't want to raise their kids in a train car or an apartment or whatever. So 4 of the brothers built homes here in Baraboo. The first one who built a home here was Al. Al was the oldest. His first house, the house that you see down on Broadway now, is actually his second home. That's not the first one. He built kind of a very nice Queen Anne style house, kind of next door to where the mansion is now, where the Methodist church is. The second brother to build a house here was Gus. Now Gus was not one of the 5 brothers who started the circus. He was kind of the naysayer of the group. He didn't really think the circus was going to be successful, so he kind of stuck with his father's harness making business, which he probably kicked himself, afterwards for. But after a while, the brothers convinced him to join the circus, so that he became an employee rather than an owner, but made enough money to build a very nice house for his family up on 8th and Birch. Drive by, it's a nice four-square house, kind of up on the hill, so you can see they had a really very good view. Third person to build a house here was LT, and he built the house up on 10th and Oak. If you drive up there today, you'll see more kind of like an institutional kind of a building, not really a mansion, not the mansion that he built there. And the reason for that is LT and his wife Adela were divorced around 1913 or so. And in the divorce, she got the house here in Barabo, and then LT moved to New Jersey and built a huge mansion up there. But when Adela passed away, she donated the house to the Sisters of St. Mary, and that became the first hospital in Barabo, so it's called St. Mary Ringling Hospital. And was the main hospital here until about the mid-60s. When they built the current St. Clair Hospital. And amazingly, I was actually born in that hospital. So I'll tell you how old I am, but I kind of alluded to that already. But my parents moved here when my dad got out of the service, Korean War, and got a job at the Bench Army ammunition plant between Sauk and Barabo. And they bought a place to live here in Barabo. Obviously, my mom was pregnant with me, so I was born here in Barabo. They had to stay here for a couple of years, and they had to buy a house in so I am a Baraboonian, whatever you want to call it, but I wasn't really lived here for very long, so kind of make the big circle back in Barabo. But so the house was the hospital. There was additions that added on to the hospital over the years to get it big enough to be able to serve the growing population. And eventually the house itself became inadequate to use as a hospital, so the house was demolished in the 70s, I think. And then that property became like a nursing home, and then they kind of right now it's not being used, it's just a vacant, and everybody around trying to figure out what to do with that property. It's kind of a mess because the ownership is kind of in limbo. Does the state own it? Does the city own it? Does the county own it? Nobody really wants to pay the property tax, the back property taxes, and do the remediation that it would take to do something with it. So it's kind of support for the property. I can take the key if you want to drop the key up.
No.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. All right, well,
Have a safe trip back home.
yeah, thanks.
All right, yeah, enjoy it.
Have fun today.
Enjoy your day.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you at service.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Where was I? So then that was out. So we do have a picture of the house as it looked over on the front in that kind of picture board there. When we walk out to walk around the house, see down to you. So the last person to build a house here was Charles. Charles built this house in 1901. When he bought the land here, there was really nothing here. That was the edge of town. It was 8 feet. That was not pasture. It was all wooded area, or it was farmland or whatever. But of course, the city of Barabo was growing, and they want to find places for the people to live. So they convinced the landowners to sell off some land and subdivide it into lots. And Charles was one of the first ones to buy some land here. The original 2-acre plot, which is what we still have today, and that includes the 3 outbuildings back there, the carriage house, the cottage, and the barn. So those are all part of the original estate. Eventually, he started buying up land, so he actually owned this whole block. So he went from Ash Street down to East Street, but sold some land off over time. Probably closer to when they decided to move. They moved in around 1913, 1915, somewhere around there. Built a house in Evanston, Illinois. The kids were going to school there, so they went closer to the kids. Then they sold this house to their younger brother, Henry. So then the Henry Ringling family moved into this house around 1913, 1915. passed down through the Henry Ringling family until we bought it in 2015. So it was a Ringling family the whole time. It was not owned by anybody else. We're the first time we were people who own a house in 25 years, I guess. And we turned it into the bed and breakfast, so it was just a single family home, still when we bought it, so.
The article from 10 years ago, how long before the articles got written did you?
How long before what?
How long before the articles got written for the 2015? How long before you opened the bed and breakfast? Did you?
Oh, well, we bought it in, February of 2015, and, we had to do some, some planning work before that. This house was, this is in a residential area, so we had to get the zoning changed so we could run a business out of it. So that took a few months to get it through the city council and whatever, and then kind of negotiate the selling price with the owners and that. So I think we started in October 2014. We started, getting all that stuff set up. And then closed on February 15th, 2015. And so we knew we had to get it up and running pretty quick because we only have a limited amount of money, right? Got to start making something. So I kind of quit my job in Madison. Both of me were both working in Madison. And so this kind of became my full-time job to renovate it. So started in March and we opened up in July 15th, 2015, so only about 4 or 5 months. We didn't have all the rooms ready. We had, I think we had 4 of the 6 rooms ready, and then rented those out and just finished the other couple, and then finally finished the 3rd floor for us to live in. So originally we were just vagabonds in the house here. We just stayed in a vacant room, so we got that done, and then we moved to the next one until we got an apartment. And she said, "You need to get a bathroom upstairs." And I'm walking down the stairs every time I use the bathroom. So that was the motivation to get the upstairs done. So it is done. We have a bathroom, kitchen, and a pretty big living room, and a couple bedrooms up there. So it's pretty big. It's about 1,200 square feet. And the 3rd floor was used as like a ballroom, kind of like area for parties and events. The guys generally would go up there and smoke cigars and drink brandy, and there was a huge billiard table up there, full-size billiard table up there. And when we moved here, we kind of looked where we were going to live and said, well, we could probably convert the 3rd floor, but what the hell are we going to do with this big pool table? It's going to be right in the middle of our living room. So we actually talked to Joe over at the mansion, and he says, I got a billiard room in my house, and that billiard table is nothing like nicer than that billiard room. So the house does have an elevator, which is not working right now, but it did work when we bought the house. So we got the pool table apart in 3 sections and got it down and moved it into a truck and hauled it over there. So that's, if you do tour the mansion downtown, then you see the pool table in there. That was actually what was upstairs here. So let's get a little bit back to this house here. So now we have the 4 brothers. We have Al, we have Gus, we have Alfie and Charles. They all have homes here in Barabo. They also did build a house for their mother, who became a widow during the time that they were here. And again, August was a very hardworking, conscientious guy, but he wasn't a very good businessman because the kids obviously outshowed him. And they never owned a house. They never always lived in rented quarters or something like that. So when their dad passed away, their mom wanted a house that they could have all the kids over for dinner or whatever. So they built a house for down on 7th and Oak. It's still there. You can climb on it. It's privately rented, privately owned now. That's the house they built for their mother. So Al looks around. Of course, he's the one who kind of got the whole circus thing going, kind of was the motivator and whatever. He looks around, and to his dismay, he sees that he has the smallest house in all the brothers. Of course, that can't stand, right? He's the oldest, the one who got everything going, he should have a bigger house than everybody else, and, so he said, I'm gonna show everyone I'm gonna build the biggest house in Sauk County. And that's what he did, so he built that over at Sandstone Mansion down there on 1905, so a few years after all the other brothers had their houses. And, Al also did finance the construction of the theater. He built the Al Ringling Theater on Fourth Avenue. The city did not have a working, a functioning theater or ballroom or anything at the time. The one that they were using burned down. There was had several kind of catastrophic fires which took out a lot of the downtown. And that's why you see most of the buildings downtown are all brick or stone, because they didn't want it. When the house is burning, there's one timber frame house left downtown, only one from that side. I think it's a legal office or something else, painted white, obviously, kind of different, but all the other buildings are stone or brick. And Al decided Al kind of adopted Barabo as his home. Not that there weren't any of the kids that were actually born here. Of course, the kids of the brothers were, some were born here, but not the original seven. So he decided to build a theater for the city, use his own funds. It cost about $100,000 to build the theater in 1950, which would have been about $3.5 million today. And I wouldn't say he donated it, but kind of dedicated it to the city of Barabo. If you do get to tour it, I don't know if you've toured the theater before, but it's fantastic.
It's gorgeous.
It's a gem that you won't probably see anywhere else. It's really a movie palace. It's not just a movie theater. I did undergo extensive renovation in 2015. They spent $3.5 million just to renovate it, so they spent as much as to renovate it as it cost to build it. So it's actually restored back to the way it was. So they did all the murals and they did all the gold and everything. They also just spent $1 million to replace all the rigging on the stage. It was still the old tack and ropes that you used to pull all the lights up and down and all the rigging and stuff, which still functioned, but really limited what kind of shows they could have at the theater, because lots of the performance required lot more modern, I guess you want to call it modern electronics than what the theater had. So they went ahead and did that. So that's all state of the art electronics in there now in the theater. So kids can see a show there whenever they can manage it. I worked there for about 4 years as an operations manager. So been everywhere. Been in the basement, been up on the roof, been up on the catwalk, been on the it's a gem. Hopefully it survives for many years.
We saw Kashmir there,
Yeah.
the Led Zeppelin tribute band 2 years ago. And they were told you had to turn down your speaker system because the Italian guy had just finished all the frescoes and they were worried that the vibrations.
Oh,
would
yeah.
damage the fresco.
I saw the Pink Floyd tribute band there. I've seen lots of events there. Yeah, so it's a gem in the gem city. The same architect who built this theater actually built the Patch Theater in Milwaukee. So if you go there, you'll see a lot
It's
of
gorgeous.
similarities if you look at that type of thing. So, do you want me to continue here, or do you want to walk around a little bit?
Let's walk around.
Sure, sounds good. Let me put this back, we'll bump it later.
You can buy
assembled over there by that little board there.
Sorry.
There it is, Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, right here.
This
You
way.
got it, it's yours, same section.
Yeah, you can take them and, get your little description in the back of all that kind of stuff. So this is LT, this is, Gus's house, what we talked about earlier. This is LT's house, with the hospital, the Dallas house there, this is our house. This is the Brown's house. And then this is, three couple more
And we have been to the mausoleums, definitely go check those out.
Yeah.
This one here.
And it's this street right here,
Here's the picture of it.
straight up. You run right into it. But they have, because we went to their mausoleums as well.
Did ya?
Because one of the things we like to do is we like to look for zinkers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Zinc
it's the
tombstones.
zinc manufactured, their cord foundry grave markers. So when you tap on them, they make this hollow, tinny, tink, tink, tink noise.
Uh-huh.
And they're a bluish gray stone.
Mhm.
So when you're looking out, you can see them, that they look different. They also, even though they're 100+ years old, they don't mold, fungus, or everything else
Sure.
like the other stones do.
Well, they were only made in the late
Yeah,
1800s
late
to early
1800,
1900s.
early 19, war between the States and World War I pretty much nixed it because they needed foundries for all the munitions. But we had gone to go see their stuff, and we were looking for zinkers. It's really neat, just the architecture. And we like the, one of the
What's the name?
sisters' epitaph, which was hold here, that, or hold this, or hold on, hold this. I can't remember what it was.
It said she was known for the words, hold this.
Yeah,
or
hey,
something.
hold this, yeah.
Oh, wow, well, we actually have I think we got a little sheet here that shows that
I thought it was
those
hysterical.
people, all the people that are buried here in Barabo, the circus people, so if
Oh.
you're really cemetery haunters, it tells you where all the
Oh,
people are. It's over
That's
100 circus people. Most of the Ringlings are buried up there. Charles and his wife are buried in Sarasota, Florida. They also built their home in Sarasota, a winter home, so they're buried down there. John and Ida are buried in Sarasota, and LT is buried out in New Jersey. So the rest of them are all up in Barabo, Walnut Hill Cemetery. So anyway, this is the father and mother right here. A picture of them. This is a picture of August and Maurice Alame Ringling, the parents. And a couple pictures of Charles and his wife Edith. Small picture of Henry, who bought the house from his older brother. The picture of our house when it was white, an older picture. The picture of LT's house, the one I talked about that they turned into the hospital. John is here because both John and Charles are decided to build winter homes in Sarasota, Florida, and they did. But they also started buying up thousands of acres of land in the Sarasota area, and they started real estate developments in Sarasota. Kind of built the city into what it is today. When they were there, it was a sleepy little fishing village, but now it's a pretty nice city if you've ever been there. Kind of by St. Pete and Tampa in that area. Charles built a huge pink marble mansion, and Charles and John built a huge kind of Moorish kind of a mansion right next door. John's mansion is open to the public. It's owned by the state of Florida. Charles's mansion is actually owned by the College of Florida, part of their campus now. So if you have some kids that are going to school there, probably could see it, or if you're going to a wedding or some other event, you can see it. We were very fortunate that we were able to tour all the homes down there in 2017. I think 16, 17 was when we went down there, so we got to see it all. and then, Al's house right here. So as I said before, when Charles bought this land, there wasn't really much here, other than the fact that there was, excuse me, an old stone house on the property, because this was a farm, this was farmland. So, of course, there was an old stone house on the property. Charles didn't want to live in that house, right? He's got to build his own house. But what are we gonna do with this old stone house? It's in pretty good shape yet. Maybe what should we do with it? So they decided to move it. So they actually moved the house. It was located where the current carriage house is now. It was kind of up on the left, like a little hill. And they actually moved the house over to the side yard here. So the side yard is so big because there was a house there once. And then once they got the house moved, then they kind of leveled the ground and they built the carriage house there. That was probably in 1903, 2, 3, somewhere around there. But we do have a picture of that old house. We're lucky that we're in Barabo here, that as the Sauk County Historical Society at Circus World has, Parkinson Library has lots of places that have old pictures and stuff. So we found one of the old stone house, and this is what it looked like.
It is interesting. It looks like one of the ones up on the hill down here.
Yeah.
That's
So it's a
nice.
600-ton house they moved with. Of course, they didn't have
600.
tractors or cranes or any of that stuff in
It's a big
1901.
skid.
They had to move it with
Elephants?
elephants, maybe. I don't know.
Probably, yeah. You totally see that.
You can see the railroad ties and stuff shoved underneath it and move it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
So once they got the house moved, and then we found an old picture of the house, and this is one of the few pictures we found that actually shows the old stone house on the side. So you can see our house hasn't changed a lot over the years. There's a few changes to it. The first thing is that you notice is the front porch is a little bit more elaborate now. It wasn't quite as fancy. There used to be a window right here, which would have been right there.
Oh, yeah.
Before they were finished building, they decided that the fireplace they had put in there looked kind of dorky by itself, so they decided to take the window out and put those two England looks on either side. So that was done before the house was finished.
Wow.
This shows the house before they added the library on. Once they moved the big house, then they had room to build the carriage house, and they had the little room in the back, so they put the library on in 1904. And then when Henry bought the house in 1913 or so, he was already in poor health. He's the one who died quite young when he was about 48 or 49 years old, but he's the one who put the elevator in. So if you look outside, you'll see kind of like a tower up there. That's actually the elevator shaft.
I was
And
wondering
we
what that
were
was.
asking
Yeah.
about that. I didn't.
Yeah, you can see the elevator.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
We'll walk around. We'll show you the elevator.
I didn't know if it's a widow's watch or whatever. I can't remember what they call those. Where they're,
Widow's
Widow's
watch.
Peak.
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. Where they sit up there.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are the little windows you can actually look out. Yeah. But,
That's a good question, when you're talking about the fireplace, so obviously in 1901 construction, how many fireplaces were in?
4.
Four, just.
Yeah, this was about as modern as you could get for a house at the time. It had indoor plumbing, had indoor
So
TV.
were those 3, and then where was the 4?
One upstairs and room number 2.
Yeah, because I was looking at, you got 3 fireplaces here, and something on that side, you can see they've got the modern radiator.
You see the radiator, yep. Originally, the fireplaces would have been coal or wood-fired fireplaces. Eventually, they did convert it to,
Electric. Yes.
originally it was steam radiators, and then now it's hot water radiators. And we still use the radiators to keep the house.
Yeah, was it steam radiators on Central City, like Milwaukee has steam on all the downtown, but I didn't know if.
No, this is, they wouldn't have had steam pipe yet, no, it would have been.
Would have been
the generator.
on site, yeah.
Yeah. The house had 5 bathrooms originally, which is pretty amazing for 1901. Only 10% of the homes had indoor plumbing in 1901, so not just one bathroom. 5. 3 of their bedrooms have the original bathrooms, so 1, 5, and 6 have the original bathrooms. And 3, we added the room 2 had a sink, but didn't have a toilet or shower, so we knocked out a closet and made that in there. And then 3 and 4 had brand new bathrooms carved out of the room.
say some of them, sometimes they get renovated, the houses, the rooms get subdivided out for apartments. And
Oh, yeah.
you have to restore them, yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, we were very fortunate again that the house stayed in the Ringling family because no doubt if it would have went to a private person, it would probably got chopped up or something would have happened. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, so we can't really change the exterior. So the exterior has to stay the way it was. So no vinyl siding and no aluminum storm windows and no window air conditioners. And no addition onto it unless you make it distinctly different. So when somebody looks at it, they say, "Oh yeah, this is the original house." And then we have,
Well, like you said, the porch, when you renovated the porch. Keeping it within.
oh God, well, you've got some stories about that. You know, the house was not in the greatest shape. The paint job was kind of like what you see on the carriage house and that. It's flaking and bad and had some holes in the porch roof and storm windows were broken and it was, you know, kind of going downhill a little bit, but,
Gotta walk that line between, you know, preservation and repair.
Yeah.
yeah, and you can't just go to Menards and buy some siding or whatever to put in there. You have to make it the way it was. So we actually found a company in Milwaukee that had the correct knives to make the molding trim. So we had to send some lumber down there. And they cut it and we put it back up so that it matched exactly the old trim on there. You can't change the railings. The railings. Oh, you can change the railings, but they have to replicate the original look. The railings, however, are not a legal height, so you can't walk out there. You know, they're decorative. Lots of people ask, "Can you walk out there?" And no, you can't. Not unless you climb out the window.
You
Use
can't
a
go
ladder.
through these doors, it's not
Upstairs.
Upstairs.
Oh, upstairs.
Yeah, upstairs.
And yes, we had to. We found the matching tile for the floor. So all the new bathrooms actually have the matching tile. So it has the same design as the other one. We found an electrician. The whole house has been rewired. It had the original knob and tube wiring in it, which was from 1901.
Scary.
And it was in good shape, but certainly woefully inadequate for what we needed to do it. Nobody's gonna want to have just one outlet in the room.
Say, yeah, it's fine if you wanna plug in a lamp and an alarm clock, but
Yeah.
when people start plugging in a multi-strip and.
Yeah, so the house got rewired, and you put outlets in the bathrooms and put the bath fans and that kind of stuff in, and more outlets in the rooms so people can use them. We put a commercial water heater in, so everybody has hot water.
You had to put in the bath fans even? I know
We did put a bath fan
We
in.
didn't put one in our house.
Yeah.
Because we're so expensive.
They're not just
Space
they're not
up
just
there.
a 50 CFM, $50 bath fan. See in the hotel rooms and you can't even hear anything.
Yeah.
They're 100 CFM fans, so they suck everything out.
That's
They
like
have they have those heater or
Yeah.
light, whatever. So
That's excellent. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, nice heat.
It was
I
nice
was
to be able
cold
to
this
turn on the
morning.
heat.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And we put a commercial water heater in with that circle line, so everybody has hot water. That is usually the complaint in most older Victorian homes if they've converted them. Is that God, it takes me 15 minutes to get hot water, and this one you get it pretty fast.
I think now, if you can, just turn on that extra and get the tankless heater, I'm sure it's a little more leeway now.
You could put, we considered putting some tankless ones in, especially in room number 4, because they had an air jetted tub, but the water heater, the commercial one we put in can generate about 800 gallons an hour, so we don't need
No, yeah,
a
that's why.
water heater. You won't run out of hot
I
water.
know, just fine.
And what else did we do? Yeah, we painted, we added the bathrooms, we rewired the house, we put the commercial water heater, painted our street, we painted, we did the outside of the house. First had lead-based paint, so we had to have a certified company come and scrape it and change it, and it took about 2.5 months and about 120 gallons of paint to take the outside of the house. Cause there's 58 windows in the house and no trim and all that other kind of stuff. 3 stairs, you know, first they would scrape it off and then they put this, kind of a pre-primer called, peel bond. And so it kind of, gravity flows and kind of covers up some of the alligator that you get on which you can't really, unless you want to spend a year trying to down all the old paint. And again, we need to get up and running, we didn't have time to dig around with,
So there was lead paint on the outside of the home?
Yeah.
I was, okay.
Yeah.
Right,
I
yeah,
remember.
that's a different one.
Yeah.
Sandblast that up.
Yeah.
you can't make dust, yeah, so they had to use, they couldn't use scaffolding, they did all the ladders and they did a great job. I mean, it's starting to show its age now, but it's been 10 years, so, you know, it's pretty good, they did a pretty good job. We just have to do the same in the other 2 buildings. And furnish the house, you know, so that was.
But you were good on the internal paint. Internal paint all checked out, just the external paint is good.
Yeah, and there, and all the colors here are, historic colors, so they were colors that they would have used in that era. Sherwin Williams has a palette that's called historic colors, so not the original colors that were here, but colors that would have been used in that.
So do you live here on site?
Yeah,
The third
So
floor.
the carriage?
yeah, we live
All bed
Third
and
floor.
breakfast, they have to be, they have to have it.
Yeah, and for the license, Wisconsin bed and breakfast license, she has it on site, off-site.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were living upstairs or in the carriage house or where they lived.
Yeah, the carriage house.
Too.
The carriage house originally, well, it has 2 apartments on the second floor that we rent out. Originally, the left 2-bedroom one was for the butler and the carriage driver, that was where they stayed. The one on the right-hand side was a hay mound, actually originally for the horses, for the carriages, which is downstairs, which still had the original carriage stalls and the horse stalls in there, all the original woodwork, everything's in there. And so the 1-bedroom was converted into a 1-bedroom, so we rent those 2 out to tenants. The little cottage that faces 9th Street, that was actually built originally for Charles's mother-in-law. So some people know it as the Conway Cottage, because that was where she lived. Again, when they were building this house, Edith's dad passed away. So now her mom needed a place to live, you know, and she was a widow. So the story goes that while they were building this house, Edith says, you know, my mom really needs a place to live. You think she can move in with us? And Charles
build her a
says,
house.
she ain't moving with me, I'll build her a house. So that's a big old mother-in-law cottage in the back. That we had rented out to tenants for as long as we were here, but last year we decided to make that part of the B&B. So that's my latest project, is converting that into a part of the B&B. So it was a little 3-bedroom house, but now it's 2 bedrooms. We converted one of the bedrooms into like a part of a bathroom. So it's got put a new kitchen in, put a new bathroom in, we put a 60-inch roll-in shower, so somebody with a wheelchair, something can roll in there.
Nice.
Got a deck with a ramp on the back, opened up the doorway so you can get a wheelchair all the way around. Put a two-person, bowl sink, put an energetic tub, and so it'll be really nice. Once I finally get it done, but that will just, it actually will create some availability for guests that we can't accommodate now, like people who have a hard time walking up steps because it's all one level.
Yeah, it's perfect.
They can use the ramp to get up.
Appliancy and preservation, not always, again, they don't always.
Well, yeah, the outside's not changing much, except for the deck on the outside, but the outside still is the same. And we put central area and never conditioned it before.
Mhm.
And what else? So people with kids, we don't allow, kids under 10 here, people with pets, lots of people want to have travel with a pet.
Yeah.
We don't allow pets here except for service animals, so now we can offer something for people with pets, or people with kids, or people with
Handicaps.
mobility issues, or even couples that just want some privacy. They just want to be by themselves,
Yeah. It's nice.
Yeah, that's okay.
And so they, there'll be a kitchen there. They can cook their own food. Has a stackable grate there, so it's kind of self-contained. I think we probably still will offer breakfast to them if they want to come over for breakfast. But so that's a big big addition to our business. That generates money so we can fix up the other building.
Exactly.
So do you guys do like murder mystery dinners
We
and
do.
stuff?
We
Yeah.
do about 2 or 3 a year. We actually just had one in April.
Oh wow.
We'll have to find out when you're
Yeah,
gonna do
we'll have
one
to try one
next.
Yeah,
sometime.
just check the website. They have to post it on the website on the event page. And, this the last one was James Bond theme, so it was a 007 kind of a thing.
Nice.
And we had one before. It's usually 2 or 3 a year. Usually in the off season, usually in the fall or winter, when we don't have quite as many guests. It's hard to do in the summertime. We're pretty full in
Yeah.
the summertime. But we do have baby showers and wedding showers and business meetings, and we have plays in here, and we have.
Was that a celebration of life last night?
Yeah, we just had
Yesterday?
that last night.
Yeah, yesterday.
And we got another one coming up, I think,
Yeah.
in another couple of weeks or something.
Yeah, it's a nice area to do any kind of. Yeah.
Yep.
And,
We walked midway into it. Ooh, if I just told Julie, yeah, I'm here on the
Pretty big
steps.
crowd in here
Yeah.
yesterday. I didn't realize how many people were here. Usually our groups are like, around 40 or so, but
Yeah.
there's more than 40 here. And then we have a Blues Fest in the fall in September. So September 6th is the Blues Fest. So we have 3 bands, and we have food trucks and all that
That'd be
kind
cool.
of stuff. So one time a year, so in the fall.
We do a lot of steampunk events. It'd be nice to do like a steampunk invasion of Barabo, but it seems like you got a lot of things going on.
There's a
all-
lot of
all
things going on in Barabo.
That
Yeah.
seems to be the issue.
We just had the spring art fair
Yeah.
last week, and lots of live music here. They just had a blues band down at Conamici last night, and so lots of things going on. There's about 7 wineries within about 15 minutes of here. So if you're
Fully
a
supported.
wine connoisseur, and a couple breweries here,
Distillery,
Tumbler
right?
Rock,
A distillery or two.
and Ringling Brewery, and there's a couple distilleries, and of course, Driftless Glen, and then there's one up in the Dells, so yeah, there's
Good,
lots
this
of
man is the
things.
one that first brought us into the area. Yeah.
Devil's Lake, a lot of people that are visiting Devil's Lake, that gets about 3.5 million visitors a year, so it's one of the biggest state parks in Wisconsin. We've got Deer Lake, and we've got Parker's Glen, and Field's Nest, and lots of outdoor activities. International Crane Foundation is here, to see all 15 species of cranes in the world.
Oh, we saw that.
Yeah,
We
our
drove by.
backyard is always full of cranes. Our first year here, it's like, oh, look at the turkeys. Like, those are not turkeys. Don't shoot those. Those are endangered.
Yeah.
We have a big cornfield in the back area, and so I was sitting out
They
there
make
drinking my
that-
coffee, and I'm on live, and I'm like, wow, look at all these turkeys out here. I mean, because it's far away. I didn't have my glasses on, okay?
Yeah,
So,
whatever.
and someone commented, aren't those cranes? And I was like,
Yeah.
They
maybe.
make a completely different call than a
Yeah, they look
tell
slightly
you can
different.
tell exactly when it's a queen, it's a call. But,
Yeah.
and they look kind of like a pterodactyl when they're flying.
Mm-hmm.
They're really long neck, and they got these big wings, and stuff. And,
There's like 50 of them there. I mean, it was like full. The whole
And they're all
cornfield was full.
slate gray. It's like those, you
They're
look
far
at.
away. I mean, it was far away.
Well, one of the recent times I've seen a bunch of them. I was out for delivery, so I was out, and there was probably 100, 150 just circling up over right by the lake. They were just circling up about 200 feet. I'm like, yeah, we wouldn't take those for turkeys.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's very distinctive call.
Yeah.
They
Step
got
out,
a very
step out of the truck and like, what is going on out there?
What else we got going on here? Yeah, lots of things, you know, so it's a very vibrant little town, and, you know, kind of growing. And of course, if you really wanted to go to the Dells, you can go to the Dells, we're not that far
This is
away.
not the weekend to be there. That
This is
place
not the weekend
is-
to be where they're on motion, there's 200,000 people.
It took us
It's-
20 minutes to
it's
cross the
insanity.
road to get to the Legacy. On that main highway, people kept driving and then blocking the interstate and the intersection, so we couldn't get through it. I was so mad. I said, I'm getting out of this car and I'm
Yeah,
going
she's
to
ready
direct
jump out and
traffic.
start
Yeah, it's
swinging
just a
at
lack
people.
of, and you can't, when traffic's that bad, you
Yeah.
have to wait till you're actually clear to get. You
Yeah,
can't
just wait.
back up
Yeah,
in traffic,
no,
you know?
they were bumper to bumper
Yeah, it
all the
was
way across
gridlock.
and they were just stopped. And then we have a green light. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And so people had to go into the other lane, the
Ow.
oncoming lane, to get around to get through this
Oh, yeah.
intersection. It was horrible.
just so
It,
mad.
it was something I would have seen back home in Philly or in Chicago.
I
or
had
something
rage
crazy.
by the time we got to the show.
She had rage.
Like,
I mean, I'm sure it's a big moneymaker for the city, so they keep, they keep saying they're not gonna have it here, cause
I'm
they
thinking
have
of moneymakers when we get traffic.
traffic. and-
Yeah,
One
right.
traffic cop just handed it.
Vandalism and, you know,
Yeah.
abuse and stuff like that, so sometimes. you know,
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff
Yeah,
goes along
maybe you
with
need to
it.
call the routine police, phone number if traffic's
Yeah.
taking.
well, and they were in a lot of they were close to the interstates, directing traffic in and off. And the interstates, cops were,
Oh,
but not at that. And I,
And I actually been highway patrol because the first year there.
Yeah, I'm
Maybe,
sure they
yeah.
help from a whole bunch of the local.
it's
uh,
crazy.
I think somebody could have been in that intersection.
Especially right before the concert.
But the boat trips are neat, are nice if you wanna go up to the Dells for that, there's a casino up there, between,
Oh, Ho Chunk.
so, you're they're pretty decent shows there, bands or whatever. So, we usually go to Ho Chunk maybe once a year.
Oh, yeah, no, those are,
Yeah.
Or see a show there.
Just about a walk down the strip in
Ours is-
downtown, whether you're going to Ripley's or whether you're doing the shopping,
kind of
or whether
afraid
you're doing,
that
Oh,
kid was
photos
Yeah.
or,
Yes, it's a fun
Yeah, they love us all the time, photos. They like stealing photos, they're our own clothes.
Yeah. I think that would be great if you guys could get like a festival going on here. That'd be awesome. We would come.
Yeah, we're always looking for new places, because there was one in Lake Geneva for a while.
Yeah.
It was just at a resort, but, and my mom
Okay.
has.
Yeah, but, yeah, we
We
could
could
talk.
shop in
Yeah.
Elkhart, like,
Yeah,
there's
sounds
also
good.
thinking something there, but
Maybe-
I'm not great at organizing, so.
Maybe Eau Claire would do something. They're very,
Yeah.
What,
Eau Claire, to do a steampunk,
Oh.
like festival thing. Don't you think Eau Claire would probably do something like
Lacrosse
that?
would probably be
Lacrosse,
good
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
because of the
lacrosse too.
college.
Yeah.
Eau Claire
Eh,
is the
The college, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's different scales too.
Yeah.
You can do a daytime where you just have a couple of people meet, hey,
Yeah,
we're
we
gonna
do
tour
picnics
this.
all the time in the parks,
We're
like
gonna have
whenever there's a
dinner.
beer garden up at
You
the
know?
parks, like, okay.
They
let's do a steam
have
punk.
a Renaissance
Yeah.
fair here in early fall, at Circus World, so that's kind of.
That's probably your target.
Yeah.
Tied
You got
in.
the big Tesla kind of.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Line
not
up down days.
500 people event thing, I'm maybe 20,
And the big top show is open at Circus World, so you wanna see the real circus
Yeah.
underneath that.
They said it's at 11 and I think 2:30 or something today, so.
So we're obviously doing the 14th.
11 and 2
Yeah.
is when.
Oh, 11 and
shows
2,
are.
okay, so
Yeah,
we want to make sure that we have
They
to.
close on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So if you come back, if you wanna see.
How much is the circus?
No,
Oh,
let's go back to the house.
how much is the house? Yeah.
How much of the furniture and decor is original? I mean, I know, like you said, we got a lot of different places. A lot of them, they have stuff that they found when they bought the building,
Uh-huh.
a lot of storage, and other stuff, they're like, oh, we take donations, and we've got a estate sale, we bring in period for stuff to add out there.
Yeah, there's a few Ringling pieces here, and we'll point them out. So I guess the next thing, since we're standing here, is the wallpaper. Wallpaper is the original wallpaper from the house. It was, when we got here, it was, had some spots that had been, worn off and discolored and whatever. It's kind of interesting, because it's actually got this brown craft paper and the image is actually painted on, so.
Right. We were talking about
if you
paints,
try-
and that's why I
Yeah, if you
assumed
rub
that
it
they
off,
would
you
be
actually rub the image off, so, a couple years ago, we had it restored, it goes back to how it was.
Because I know that there's.
And you can see the
I don't
brush
know
marks.
how out on the street, but they will paint
So
their
they said this is
images
original?
and
No,
their
not
Mhm.
original.
paper,
Yeah, it's
you know,
original.
Oh,
reproduced
they just repainted it.
for historical.
Repainted and
preservation.
restored.
Yeah, they did that
nice.
over at,
You can see where they cleaned
Yeah,
and
around,
they did that at,
because if they clean that, it'll actually rub it off. You can't see it near as much here as you can see it here because of the light.
Brighten it up, 'cause
yeah.
again, with that morning sun coming.
Working
that
here, you
wall
can
is
see
in front of it.
the brush marks where it's been touched up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Here you can see the
Less
brush mark.
sun bleach.
It's nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was some beach stuff. And if you look up on the edge there, up on the top there by the stairway, you'll see that it looks like the wallpaper's kind of cut out in the design to make it look like a real plant, and that's actually what they did. They actually cut it out and made it look like a plant. They call it sculptured wallpaper, that's what they call it.
That's neat. And then what is original? Is it the lighter blonde or the darker?
All the wood is original, however, this color is not original. This color was changed in the late fifties, early sixties.
This is one of the wines, right?
Yeah.
One of that, it's the same thing with the Victrola.
The
And it
Victrola is the original Victrola from the Ringling family, yeah.
looks- And they bleached it or did something to make it.
Different color?
The piano.
Oh, the piano.
The piano was
Okay.
You're getting
Yeah,
ahead.
so this woodwork was changed by Gene Ringling in the late fifties, early sixties. That was the vogue at the time, with the blonde colored wood or light colored wood or whatever.
I prefer it. It
And,
brightens up a room.
And, so Ringlings weren't any different than any of us, you know, you get some, just fashion changes or whatever, and of course she wanted to keep up with the time, so she had the woodwork all restained in this color.
And that would have been,
Yeah.
she would, when she would have entertained, that, she wants that immediate pop.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and you can see
Show off.
But
that.
the
I'm-
woodwork in
I'm-
there is all
I'm-
original,
yeah.
it's quarter
Yeah.
sawn oak, and then the
Yeah.
wood in the library is mahogany, so there's lots of wood species in
Are all
here.
the pocket doors functional?
All the pocket doors function, after 125 years.
Well, that was cool. I liked how the handle popped out.
Ours did that too. In a
And then
way.
lock, there's a lock on them, too, so you can lock them if you want to.
Well, that's why I was thinking, like you say about, when she would entertain.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
the doors would be closed, so they would
Or
see
you
the hall,
just want
and
to
then
keep one of them,
choose which
you know,
doors she
or-
wants to open, to entertain in on that particular day. Maybe she had-
So
maybe
we
she'll
come
get
into the
tea,
parlor
maybe she
here, the ceiling
This is where we locked the children.
had- That's the third floor, it's count the billiard room.
In the music room. The wallpaper, however, is not the original wallpaper. We put the wallpaper up. It's sort of a Victorian kind of a style. This is what the wallpaper looked like originally. It was this green stuff, and this actually, this canvas is glued over all the walls here, and trying to keep the cracks from showing through and make it a smooth surface to paint on. But this is the original color. So it's yeah, pretty close.
Yeah.
The color.
So was it a sideways or a vertical, for the wall?
Oh, it was kind of like this.
Vertical,
Yep.
yeah.
And, so yeah, Julie and her mom and her sister put it up. They did a good job, but they supposed to follow it. They'll never put up wallpaper.
Yeah.
The only time we're gonna do wallpaper here.
It's miserable.
Ink ropes, like I said, were added a little bit later. The fireplaces are all original. There's 4 of them. Of course, you can see she restained the color. The marble is locally quarried marble. Barabo is also known for its the type of rock that the bluffs are made out of. It's called the quartzite rock. Quartzite is the second hardest rock on Earth next to diamond, so makes it good for construction uses and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
If you see the pink rock in the bluffs or whatever, this is it. What the rock looks like.
Interesting.
And
Please say, Will they have a sustained or just kind of because they kind of neglected it?
It's just electric.
But I mean, no, this is electric, but when you were storing.
When you were,
Oh, they would have been wood or coal fired. The problem is the chimneys are online, so you can't really burn wood in them or
No, you
anything.
can't burn now, but.
You have to have them
And I'm sure
lined,
they were so
and
so-
then you'd have to trust that people know how to use a wood fireplace. In fact, our insurance company said if you have a wood fireplace in your house, we're not insuring you, so.
But you're renting,
We'll never
when you
have wood
renovate,
fireplaces in here.
restore from what was, when they were in use, did they get so heavily stained that took over restoration?
They just had a damper or whatever, yeah, but, it's about 12 grand per fireplace to put a lighting in them, so,
And he put a wood burning stove in, and then a liner himself
yeah,
into an existing fireplace that they didn't really use.
yeah.
But I get it, you know, with the insurance and
But,
everything.
no, anytime you're, yeah, I would like to say, when you're trying to insure, it's like, yeah, we're gonna have to close all these fireplaces down.
Yeah,
Use them different.
yeah, so
We live in the 2000s.
they're just electric now, maybe we'll put gas in eventually if we have,
And that's scary too. That's why a lot of these houses burn down.
Yeah, we get into the music room here again, she did restain, woodwork, so it's, that color, the ceiling, always original ceiling, the plaster ceiling. The piano here, that's the original piano from the Ringling family. You can see that she changed the color, so this was the color originally, and then changed it to, that lighter color to, match with the rest of the woodwork. The piano itself is a Steinway grand piano, it's not in very good condition, however, it was not, very well maintained over the years. We know it is the real deal because we actually called up the Steinway company, gave them the serial number, and they said, yep, Henry Ringling bought it in 1917, so they still had the records back from then.
nice.
We did have a Steinway guy come in and look at it to see what it would cost to get it restored, and unfortunately told us about $50,000 to restore it, so kind of a big plant stand right now, but other than that, it is the real deal. You can buy that piano at the Steinway store yet, if you really want a piano that, with that style, be about $100,000 for a new piano, so. If anybody has 50 grand, we'll get it restored.
Keys.
Yeah.
He's pretty off, he's pretty untuned.
Yeah.
This piano here is actually a playing piano, which you can play if you want to play it. It's actually Julie's grandfather's piano. This is actually her grandfather right here.
Huh.
And this is the clarinet he used to play. So
Oh.
personal history along
I was
with
wondering why
this.
there's two pianos, but now they're playing that makes sense.
And Julie's a French horn player, so we got a beat up old French horn.
Nice.
The mirror there is the original mirror from the house, was not here when we bought the house, it was in storage. Joe from the mansion, when he heard we bought the house, he called us up and said, I think there's a mirror in storage that belongs in your house, and we said, well, how do you know that? And he said, well, you know, we looked at it and it's too big, it doesn't fit over any of our fireplaces. It doesn't, the style, you know, the architectural style of their house is different than ours. It says it doesn't match any of the style. We don't have any pillars like this, or we don't have this dental molding in the house. If you look at our house, we have the dental molding all over, so it does match with that. And he said it's got this really odd feature. It's got these two little pegs on the bottom, and we don't know what they're for. And I said, well, I got two little holes on the top of my and see if it fits. So
Yeah.
we got it out of storage and we brought it in there and lifted it up, and of course dropped right in the hole.
Do you think
There
there
it
needs
is.
to be something about that?
Perfect.
Do you think
We think maybe Jean took it down when she renovated the downstairs.
that, I mean, because the pillars lead up to something?
Well, they would have originally matched the pillars here because the fireplace has been renovated. We actually have a picture of the room here, so I can show you what that looks like.
That's cool.
This is what the room looked like originally. If you see see the pillars here on the fireplace. They kind of match up with the pillars on
Oh, I see.
the fireplace. This would have been Charles's piano. That's Henry's, so that's the difference. He was playing the piano over here. And there's no doorway here,
Oh, yeah.
because that was before the library was added. There was a couple cases actually on either side, which we have upstairs yet on the third floor. So those are, we still have them.
That's pretty cool.
So that's what this room looked like. Get into the library here, and even though it was added in 1904, it's probably one of the more original rooms in the house because everything in it other than the furniture is original. So the fireplace is original, the marble, the flooring, all the woodwork, all the windows, all the stained glass, all the leaded glass, everything, even the lights. This is the original light from the house. We had it rewired and put back up. Got this interesting feature. It's got these gas jets here, in addition to electricity. So electricity back then was a pretty newfangled invention. You know, they've been around for about 20 years, so it was kind of unreliable. In fact, electricity was originally designed only for business use. Residential homes generally didn't have it. But if you had enough money, you could get the power company to run a line to your house, and that's what happened to the Ringlings.
I couldn't imagine using gas.
Yes.
And
Light a house.
No, we come from a 20th century
Right.
view of it. I mean, back then it's like, well, do I want to burn candles? Do I want to have lights?
Right.
Yeah, so.
I can just see my house explode.
And coal gas was more reliable and had been around longer, so they had a gas. The gas line came down through there, and this is an open flame, so you know why some houses caught on fire. Wasn't very safe, but those dual fuel lights only lasted for about 20 years until electricity started taking over, and then it's today everything runs on electricity basically.
Wow, so this would control it and you just have
Yeah,
open
so
flame?
just an
with
open
pilot
flame,
lights?
it's one of these turns on.
Yeah, and then you'd have to light it and hope you didn't fill your house full of gas.
Right.
Yeah, you'd suffocate just like you would with carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
That trunk there is Henry Ringling's trunk. That's the original trunk from the Henry Ringling family. We know it's original because we got it from the Ringling family. It has his initials on the side. So that's
See all the boot prints pushing it.
yeah, it's got little trays and stuff in there that actually has games and stuff in it now. You can see it's well used. Again, a tribute to the woodwork and craftsmanship of the house, because of course back then they didn't have electric power tools, they didn't have battery powered tools, they didn't have any electric powered anything, other than maybe the sawmill, they rough cut the lumber. So they had to do everything by hand. So if you look at these little carvings here, they're all a little different. So they were all carved by hand. The Isenberg brothers were the carpenters that built this house. They were German immigrants as well. They built a lot of houses in Barabo, and they also built all three of Charles's homes. So they built this one, the one in Evanston, and the one in Sarasota. They actually paid for the Isenberg brothers to go down to Sarasota, and it took them a year to build the house down there.
Wow.
That was not cheap.
And some pictures of the family and the people who have lived in the house. So this is Charles and Edith. Of course, when they were a little bit more wealthy, in the 40s, I think that probably, would have been in the 20s, because he died in 26. But he's got the beaver skin cap, and she's got the nice fur coat and whatever. So so the Ringlings really are kind of rags to riches story. They started out in McGregor, giving little performances to their neighbor kids up until the 1920s, when they were probably some of the richest people in the United States. John was the 13th richest person in the United States, and Charles was in the top 25, so they were in that Vanderbilt, Carnegie kind of Rockefeller level of wealth. They made their money from the circus, but then branched out and did lots of other things. John owned ranch land in Montana, and they had oil wells was one of the original partners in First Madison Square Garden in New York City. The Ringlings also started out playing to the really small little towns, and they wanted to keep that heritage kind of alive, even though they got pretty big. So if they wanted to go to a smaller town where the railroads didn't reach, they would actually self-finance a spur off of the main railroad so they could get the train in there to perform, and then they would lease back the track to the railroad company, so they made money there. And then both Charles and John had huge real estate holdings in Sarasota, so they were multi-millionaires from playing for pins. Charles and Edith had two kids. This is their son Robert and their daughter Hester. Robert was a opera singer by trade, actually. And when Charles passed away in 1926, there was only one remaining brother left, John. So John, Edith, and Robert owned and ran the circus up until the mid 40s, maybe early 50s. And that's kind of where Ida, the lone daughter, kind of comes into the picture indirectly. Ida had two sons of her own, John and Henry Ringling North was their name, because their father was Henry Whitestone North, railroad executive. And when Al passed away in 1916, Lou decided she didn't want to live there in that big old house by herself, so she moved up to the Dells and built a hotel up there, and eventually went in Crystal Lake, Illinois. But in Al's will, it said if Lou ever moves out of the house, then the house goes to my sister Ida. So Ida then moved into the house with her family and had two kids. And so when John passed away in 1970, the Ida's kids were named executors of John's estate. And he was, even though he was a big wheeler dealer and had a lot of kind of handshake deals, he was worth $230 million, I think, back in 1937 when he passed away, which is a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
He only had $300 in his checking account when he died. So he was way over leveraged and had lots of things that had to be cleared up. So it took him about 10 years to clear up the estate, and through that, then Ida's kids then became owners of the circus, and they owned and ran the circus up until about the mid-60s, when they sold the circus to the Feld family, and the Feld family now owns the circus. The Feld family were promoters. They provided a lot of the talent for the circus, so they were very well acquainted with the circus and the Ringlings and whatever. So it was a pretty easy transition once the kids, got older and decided, we've been running this circus for 40, 45 years, time to kind of retire, and but the Felds have, in addition to the circus, they have other entertainments like Disney on Ice, and the big monster truck shows are owned by the Feld family, and they do those in addition to circus. So that's kind of the transition to today. This is Mrs. Conway. Remember I talked about her? She's the one who was Ida's mom, who they moved into the little cottage in the back. Henry, who was the youngest of all the brothers, he married a woman named Ida. This is his wife right here, Ida Bell Ringling. You're going to hear a lot of Idas and Johns and Henrys in the family. They weren't very creative in the name, so it gets really confusing trying to figure out who's who. And so this was Henry's wife, Ida, and this is their granddaughter, Sally. Ida and Henry had one son of their own right here. And guess what his name was?
John.
Henry. And he was married to this woman right here, Jean Ringling. Jean is the one who did the renovations and the changes and whatever. She lived in the house until 1994, so pretty recent history. This is their two kids, Sally and So this Sally and this Sally are the same person here. This Sally and this Sally are the same person here. That's her wedding picture. She got married to an RAF pilot in London, England. She spent most of her life abroad. The kids up to this point were, they started out going to boarding schools, and then most of them came here for the summer. This was kind of like a summer home for those kids. So they would come and see grandma or their mom and visit, stay for the summer and then go back. This Henry and this Henry are the same person. He was killed in a car crash in 1961, I think. And so he was only about 23 years old when he was killed. So that left Sally as the lone sibling for Jean when she passed away. So when she passed away, then of course Sally inherited the house. Sally had two kids of her own, Kate and Charles Clayton Jones, because that was obviously the pilot's last name. But she had kind of a tragic life. Even though she was born into wealth, that doesn't keep you from life throwing you for a few knocks, and so she grew up in boarding schools, so she didn't really see her family all that much. Of course, her mom passes away in '94. Her brother passes away in '61. She was married to, or she was engaged to a Formula One race car driver, and before they were married, he was killed in the car crash. She was kind of a lot different than most women of the time. She was kind of a tomboy, and because she was engaged to this Formula One race car driver, she actually got to go in the pit, and so she helped out in the pit, working on the cars. They let her drive one of the Formula One race cars, which was unheard of at the time.
And that's what she has on her epitaph, right?
Yeah, and then unfortunately he was killed in a car crash. So she was married. Then she married Richard Clayton Jones, which is an RAF pilot, and she was living in Milan, Italy at the time, but they also had a house in London and they had one in Jamaica. And Richard was, once he retired from the service, he started doing some private piloting. So he was doing some crop dusting in Jamaica when he got in a plane crash, and he was killed in a plane crash. So now, have all this tragedy, and Sally says, screw, Europe, I'm going back to the United States. So she moved back here, and she lived here until 2005. Again, her two kids inherited the house when she passed away. However, they had lives of their own elsewhere. I mean, they're already in their 50s by that time when they inherited the house. So Kate lives in Massachusetts, and Charles was in the Fox Valley area for a while. He's recently moved back to this area, so he's around. But they had no interest in moving back to Barabo at that time, so they rented the house out for a few years until we bought it from them. So we bought it from Sally's son and daughter in 2015. It had been on the market for a couple of years, and we ended up, that's the story in itself is how we ended up here, but we had bought it from them in 2015. So here we are, 10 years later. This is a picture of Charles's home in Sarasota, Florida. So you can see it's right on Sarasota Bay, huge house, covered walkway. They built a house for Hester, their daughter, so she lives there. Farther over is where John's house is. They both had yachts. Both John and Charles, they were very competitive. John would get a yacht, and then Charles had to have a bigger one, and so then John would buy a bigger one. And John's one of his yachts got sunk by some people that were borrowing it or whatever. So then he had to get a bigger yacht. So it was back and forth between the two. Picture of Charles's buildings, yeah. That's a picture of a hotel that Charles built in Sarasota, Florida. It's still there. We built several hotels there. They both opened up a bank. There's a Ringling Bank in Florida, and then lots of real estate developments. If you've ever been to Bird, Longboat, Siesta Key in Florida, those are all owned by John Ringling, and he developed those as real estate developments. Charles bought a golf course and all the land where the city of Sarasota is now. So he developed those into all. So that's another reason why they became very, very well taken. Sarasota is a big mecca for Ringling stuff. There's John was they all had a job, they all had a responsibility for the circus, and John's was the advanced man for the circus, so he went ahead of the circus and he plotted the route that they were going to stop in, and then he hired a lot of the talent for the circus, so he traveled all over the country and all over Europe looking for talent, and developed a taste for art, so he started collecting art. John was not a big fan of Barabo. Kind of disliked Barabo. It was just a one-horse town to him. He was too big for Barabo, so he lived in Chicago and New York. He had apartments there. But he started, filling his apartments with artwork, and very soon ran out of room to store it. So what you do if you have a lot of money and you have a lot of art, you build your own art museum, right? Mm-hmm. So he built his own art museum down in Sarasota, right behind the house, called the John Mabel Museum of Art. It's got about $1 billion worth of art in it.
Wow.
And it's open to the public. So
I'll have to go, yeah.
Visit it. There's also a circus museum down there and a big visitor center. So once you come out of Sarasota Bradenton Airport, you're going to see a big sign that says the Ringling, and that's where all the stuff is. So we're just outside of the airport. So if you ever get a chance, go visit. It's pretty neat. Any questions so far?
When was this added on?
1904. Yeah.
So, when they say recent,
Yeah.
Yeah. Once they got the house moved, then they had a spot. Then they added this library. They added a carriage porch, and then the carriage house behind it. Yeah.
And then downtown, the passenger station, did the Ringlings not own or rent some of those apartments?
Well, you won't see if you go down there, if you drive farther down, you'll see kind of like where the Barabo City Works department is. That's actually where the circus depot would have been. So it's been trying to convert it. They had a big roundhouse where they worked on the engines, and they had all of the staff, all the administrative staff for this region of Chicago and Northwestern Railroad. They had about 200 employees that worked there. And of course, all those employees had to have houses, and so you see a lot of really nice houses in Barabo, and that's because you had everyone was well paid. People with many, with money, farmers. And there was a hops boom in this area, and it became the second largest hops growers in the U.S. And it only lasted for about 20 years. But farmers got fabulously rich doing that for that short period of time. Although, of course, a lot of them went bankrupt once the bottom dropped out of the market, because the hops beetle started moving east and destroyed a lot of the crops, and then there's other places that could grow it. So that was another boom. There was a mining boom here. They had a couple of mines right outside of Devil's Lake. Part of the reason why you see a lot of the fallen rocks along there is it's just where they dumped them when the mines were there. So they mined a lot of lead and iron ore and the quartzite rock. So lots of stuff going on in this little town.
But isn't it always either hops or tobacco for
a lot of the
makers?
Yeah, a lot of the farming. You're always surprised to see tobacco farms in Wisconsin, but yeah.
Yeah, you see that in Stoughton. You can still see a lot of the tobacco farms in
Oh, yeah, Stoughton, I think, is it Whitewater? No. I was forgetting which village it is, near Edgerton, or near.
They still do,
Yeah,
some
you go
tobacco
through,
farming
it's
there.
just massive tobacco warehouses that convert it to,
But
apartments.
they just grow, the leaves for like cigars,
Yeah.
like tobaccos and cigarettes.
Is this the same family?
Yep, that's Gene and then the two kids, yeah, Sally.
And maybe I missed it,
Those two people will ask about those a lot, and those are actually my relatives, those are my great grandfather.
Oh, okay.
So, they were cool pictures to send along.
Absolutely.
They fit the decor.
Yeah.
It's a touchstone back to your family.
So the Buffs and the Kaler, side of the family for me.
So when you installed this, obviously no room for a pocket door there, but.
Yep, there's,
just an open-
like I said, there was 5 bathrooms in the house, this is one of them. That was a common bathroom that, they had, so people came and visited. Of course, it's been renovated, but that was one of the original bathrooms. Coat closet here is kind of unremarkable, other than the fact that it's got a small safe, in there that people can store their valuables or whatever that they were visiting. There's also a huge, bank vault type of a safe in the basement. It looks like the gangster shows where you see the big, door open like in the bank. There's one like that. If you look at the back porch, the pad there, that is the size of the safe downstairs.
Oh, so that's the roof of it.
Yeah.
That's
And,
cool.
I think the reason for that is, I should point it out, Henry Ringling, there, he actually, ran and owned the theater, down, on 4th Street from 1916 until the mid-50s. And, since he lived here and owned the theater, he stored all of the records for the theater in the basement of the vault there. So when we bought the house, that had file cabinets full of all the records from the theater. And you could see how much they paid for candy and how much they paid their ushers and who the performers were
Can you
and
imagine?
all this other kind of
There was
stuff.
probably a history of businesses losing records to fires, and they're like, we are not letting that happen, we have too much invested.
So all that stuff was down there, so that all got donated to the Buck County Historical Society, so it's there, there.
It's an angry cat.
Digitize it and whatever, so people can see it, but it was pretty cool, and that's where we got the little, theater tickets that are in the little, picture frame, and then the, cigarettes we found that those were the, cigarettes that, Jean Ringling smoked, so she liked cool cigarettes. And Sally smoked unfiltered Camel cigarettes, so we know that from all of our little research. Come on, we'll show you a couple more things and we'll get done.
Touring, huh?
Built to work.
Holy mackerel.
I know.
Oh, okay.
Full enchilada here today.
The full enchilada, I love it.
So the dining room in here, of course, this is all original, all the woodwork is original, all the stained glass and the welded glass in there, that is the original, sideboard from the Ringling family. This is the original table from the Henry Ringling family, so he just ate at the same table that the, Ringlings, ate at. It says it, because this was, this house was more, better for like meetings, so a lot of times this is where the Ringling boys would meet and plan out their, their strategy for the next year or so, whatever. Yeah, we do have a picture of the room. So this is what the room looked like, so you can see it hasn't really changed a lot. This, of course, is Charles' table, that's Henry's, that's the only difference, but woodwork and everything is all original. We just acquired some dishes, from Ringling Dishes, so this one's on the other one there, ones we got from a very nice donor who called us up and said, we're doing this at an estate sale of so-and-so's house, and we found these dishes are in the basement. Documentation that they're Ringling, they were not really Ringling here, they're actually Charles, Henry Ringling Morris, so the some issues, but they're still happening. And that little cabin there is. We try not to make it like a but that's it's And once we got the three elephants in the front yard, people have a tendency to send us elephants, so that's why you see some of the elephants around here. Most of them were all donations from one way or the other. And we had a Valentine's Day dinner here, and one of the games we did was guess how many elephants are in the first floor, so people got a prize if they
Whoever got the closest.
yeah, whoever got the closest. Right now, back then it was 107, but I guess there's more now. So the house has a butler's pantry. This is the original butler's pantry. On the cabinets and everything are all that original butler's Yep. Different stuff inside.
I was got the iced tea pot and stuff, but yeah.
The house was very, again, pretty modern. This closet here was actually originally an ice box, so it was lead lined and had a little floor drain in it, and then they had a place where you could put the ice blocks, and then so it was their form of refrigeration before they got real refrigeration. Actually, John's house has a hidden speakeasy in there. It opens up a secret door and you go in there because it was around Prohibition when they had it, so you really weren't supposed to have alcohol then, but he had a way of getting it. And he had one of the first refrigerated, like kind of walk-in cooler where you could keep the beer cold in there, so it's quite that fancy here.
Did they still have it in there, did they say?
I don't remember the kitchen.
I remember them talking about it, I think they said they just left it in there.
Picture of that sink that I don't know what he said it was made of.
That's very cool. It's on it though. The top level is open, because it lines up with the top of the hill.
Yeah.
So you can see the face of like 5 stories
Yeah.
from the lakefront, but it's all to go through the hill. And so
This is
before
really
they added the lakefront, people would ride the speakeasy by boat.
It's the only cat they
Oh,
have.
yeah.
Get onto the pier.
Oh,
go into
they don't have any other
speakeasy all
cats
the way
now?
down to the very lowest level.
I asked Julie,
At Lake
she said her cat died.
So sorry about the dirty dishes, but the kitchen here,
It's
this
used.
is one of the few rooms that was renovated by Sally Ringling. Sally was actually a gourmet chef, a traveling chef in Europe. So she did, expensive dinners for well-paid clients. When she moved back here to Barabo, she decided she wanted to kind of continue to do some of that stuff, so she had the kitchen renovated. So that's where the granite countertops and that came in. Of course, that was about 20 years ago, so it's not like it's brand new anymore, but it is, this is still the original configuration of the kitchen. I had to put a new microwave in and put a new kitchen sink in, and of course the dishwasher. They only last so long, right?
Right, yeah, that's true.
So we did make some modifications to it, but this was one of the few rooms that was modernized. But the built-in cabinets and everything is all.
Beautiful.
That was where the stove would have been.
Oh.
Downstairs.
Hey,
One of the old cast iron stoves.
Yep, you put the wood in there and then the chicken.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Very cool.
We have a refrigerator there now.
the old stove, the original 1901. Yeah, it would have been wood burn or?
Would have been a wood,
Wouldn't have
yeah.
gas at that point, yeah.
I don't think so.
That was.
They had one downstairs too, that heat up hot water for the water.
Talked about that. They're like, oh yeah, we're ready to go. It's like,
Yep.
yes,
House has two stairways, a front stairway and a back stairway.
This is the
You
main
can
quarter.
see this was what we call a fire suppression system, so this was piped into the cistern on the property. There's one on each floor. So if you would have a fire, you could turn the valve on there and it would fill it with water and they could put out a fire. The Ringlings were deathly afraid of fire. They've had several catastrophic circus fires, so they wanted to make sure that they could save the house. And, obviously not working anymore because we got city water. But,
That is pretty cool.
wired in smoke detectors and fire alarms and that brings up the fire department if something happens, so that's our version. Hopefully the house doesn't burn down. The house has an intercom system, so there's one of these on each floor. There's if you look in your room, there's the old like plate in there, that was where a call button would have been similar to this, like this button right here. So if you wanted something, you were in your room, you just push the call button, and it would ring at the station here, and the waiter or the butler or the whoever would.
Maid would answer and bring you up your coffee.
It's also a wire that goes to the carriage house, so they could call over and say, you need to get my carriage ready. I want to go out for a ride.
Jeez.
They get on the just go out there to the train. So one of those on each floor too. This is where the elevator is, right here. Like I said, it's got an electrical problem right now, which we're gonna resolve. But it's got the original train car and buttons and everything. It goes all the way from the basement to the third floor.
And Jean,
We just use it for storage now until we
Get it fixed.
get it fixed, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. See it?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yep.
what about the alarm bells?
That is an alarm bell right here. Here's the panic button.
Panic button.
then these doorways obsolete now, because you've got,
Sally had a cell phone in there. I'm not gonna record this one.
that one would have led to this.
This is the closet. Yeah. So we can go out this doorway here and I'll tell you a little bit about the stained glass window. That's kind of interesting. We
You see the bridge, it looks like cheese, that is what I'm looking for.
yeah, we had the glass put on there, but
Yeah.
Julie was she was an elector, for elections. The person that takes your name and whatever for Madison. And she was working with this next to this lady, and they got to talking, and she said, we're renovating this old Ringling mansion in Barabo. And the lady said, really? And she says, well, I got a whole bunch of stuff in my basement that I want to get rid of. And I was thinking about giving it to Goodwill, but if you want it, just come over and you can take whatever you want. And that table is one of them.
Oh, nice. Beautiful.
A donation. The chairs here all were the result of some tours. We used to give more regular tours, but after COVID, it became really difficult. So we just have them on certain weekends. But anyways, we were given a tour. This lady was in here. We actually had a kind of a more modern leather couch there, and it wasn't because we decided to do that. It was because it was supposed to go up into our living quarters, but it was too big. We couldn't get it up the stairs, so we had to leave it here temporarily until we decided what we were going to do with it. And so the lady, after she got done with the tour, she sent us an email or called us or whatever. She said, I did the tour of your house and I really liked the house, but I don't think that leather couch really fits with the rest of the house. She said, yeah, we know. It's just, we don't have any place for it right now. And she said, well, we lived in Madison for many years. We had a Victorian house and we had all this Victorian furniture in it. When we retired, we sold the house and we built a house on Lake Wisconsin. So we have like a little ranch style house on the lake. But we have all this furniture that doesn't really we don't really have any use for anymore in the house. It's just sitting in the garage under some plastic. Do you wanna come and take a look at it? Cause I think it would look really nice in your house.
Yeah.
And, so we said, yeah, send us some pictures and we'll look at it. So she sent us some pictures and said, yeah, I think that looks pretty neat. And, so we went over there and, I mean, we had to pay something for it, but not a real lot, cause she just kinda wanted to, see it here. And, so it's real mahogany. It's,
Beautiful.
they are reproductions, but they were reproductions by a company that specializes in that. It's called, I forgot what the name of it was, but, it's reproduction of, the original stuff, so, which fits perfectly in here. I mean, the color even matches up with the color of the wallpaper, so. That's where the furniture, that's how almost all the furniture that we got here was either at estate sales or garage sales or St. Vinny's or Goodwill or
Yeah.
whatever, wherever we could find this stuff. We went to a couple antique stores up in,
Like you said, that happens a lot. People, you
yeah.
know, they're like, hey, I've got this piece, and it probably might be, you know, really related, or like,
Yeah.
like China.
Yep, or the China, yep. So anyways, let's talk about the stained glass window up there. So the stained glass window is original to the house. It's put in by a company called the Chicago Glass Company. We don't know a lot about the Chicago Glass Company other than the fact that, the person who started the company was a Tiffany apprentice, or so-called Tiffany apprentice. And, the glass itself, so if you look at the flowers do kind of resemble what you'd see in a Tiffany lamp. The glass itself is kind of a unusual kind of a glass. It's called anachromatic glass. And what that means is the glass the color of the glass only shines in one direction at a time. So right now, the light is coming from outside, and so you can see the colors of the glass here inside. If you were to go at nighttime, if we had the big chandelier on and you were to stand out on the carriage porch, the inside the glass would look kind of opaque, and the color you can see the color on the outside, so you only see it at one time at a time. That's a very unique property. Only 2 companies in the world had the patent for that technique, and that was Lafarge and Tiffany. So we figured, well, maybe the guy was a Tiffany apprentice if he had access to that kind of glass work. We have some imitation Tiffany lamps in room number 2, and we have a floor lamp and a couple table lamps, and unfortunately one of them got knocked over and got broken. So we found a place in Middleton that would do the repairs. So she did the repairs and brought it back here, dropped it off, and of course we gave her a little tour just like we're giving you guys, and she looked at the window and her jaw dropped, and she said, oh my God, I don't think I've ever seen an example like this of that kind of glass. And she says, I don't even know if anybody knows how to do that anymore. And she said, if you could find somebody to do it, my guess would be about $200,000 or $300,000 to replace the glass. So we're happy that it's lasted 125 years.
Yes.
Still in really good shape.
Yeah, beautiful.
We found the storm windows that were on the outside and modified them so they would fit. And so it's protected from the elements, and it's in really good shape. So
Awesome.
we're happy that we're happy that Charles and Edith had it installed, and happy that we get to look at it every day.
And the neighborhood kids hasn't thrown a baseball through it or anything?
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised because they, kids, there's like a vacant lot behind that we own that's behind the carriage house, and that was a makeshift baseball diamond for the kids when the kids were growing up. So, in fact, we still get people that come by, or when we see them, downtown or something, and say, I used to play baseball in your backyard. I said, what are you going to do with that lot? And I said, I don't know, probably nothing, And she said, well, don't ever build a house on it. We used to play, I want the memories of us playing baseball there. So sometimes we'll have an event back there or something, but I don't think we have, unless we can find a nice Victorian house that we could move, drop there, you know. I think we could do something with it. But, so any questions? Learn enough about the house, the Ringlings?
I think so.
Absolutely. So, did they ever, because I see there's a door that goes out to this landing right here, did they ever use it as a sun deck or anything out back?
There's a door that goes out there. It's got a newer roof on it, a rubberized roof. So we don't want people walking on the roof.
No, but did any of the Ringlings or any of the
Well,
owners
it
ever
would
do
have
it?
probably would have had a tin roof or whatever. Maybe they did walk out there. The porch roof still has the original tin roof up there. So we don't want people walking on that either.
My original thought was very much like a stilt house where they have a second level where you can offload the top of a stagecoach.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah,
Is that, maybe that was the original intent, that
yeah.
we might roll up a stagecoach.
I don't know.
on top of
I mean, they
anything.
put a railing on the outside. You technically, you could go out there if we put like a platform on there, but then we'd have to figure out some way to raise the height of the railing to get it to the legal height. And of course, you can't change it. I mean, you can't. We couldn't just replace the railing and put one higher because
it wouldn't.
it's not original, right?
That's right.
So you could probably put like a glass panel or something on the top to get it to the legal height if you really wanted to allow people to go out there. But it's mainly a fire escape, you know, we have a ladder out there, so if you really have to get out, you can go out there and climb down the ladder.
Thank you for the tour. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Thanks for
house.
staying with us, appreciate it.
Yeah, we're here tonight too.
Yep.
So are you guys, right?
Yeah, I think you guys are here, yeah. I love it, yeah.
So, yeah.
And the Victrola still works?
Still works,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a record on there. I popped open the lid and I was like, oh, hey, there's even a record here.
Yeah, we got that from actually a circus employee at Circus World.
Huh?
When we were, when we go and visit the Circus World, I mean, we went there probably more often than earlier than now. We tried to just get there like once a year now, but when we would go to if you go to the area where they're working on the wagons, where they do the wagon restoration, we knew the guy who did it. Heavy Burdick was his name. His nickname was Heavy Burdick, big guy, you know, big tall guy, really, you know, rough voice and whatever. And we knew him and his kids and whatever, so we saw that Victrola sitting over in the corner underneath some Visqueen. And so when we would see him, we'd say, so what's the scoop with the Victrola over there? You know, I said, that looks like it's about the same vintage as our house. It would look really nice in our house. We didn't consider, you know, selling it or donating it. And for a while, for every time you would say, no, I can't sell that. That was a gift from the Ringlings. You know, I just worked at their house and they gave me that Victrola as a payment. So I could never get rid of that, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I got it restored, but I don't have any place to, you know, put it. So it just sits there. So we just kept bugging him, you know, every time we'd see him, we'd kind of bug him. But this was kind of early on in, you know, when we started, probably maybe 3 years in or something. And I think he was a little reluctant to let it go, even if he thought about it, because he said, well, who knows if they're gonna last,
Right.
you know, very long, you know, unfortunately, most small businesses, they only last about 5 years and they're done, you know. Some only last a year or two, you know, so it's, even though there's lots of small businesses, it's a tough business to be in. So we, you know, every time we'd see him, we'd kind of rag him about the Victrola. And I think it was maybe 5 or 6 years in, he must have figured, well, crap, they've lasted this long, we're probably gonna be there for a while. So he just called us up one day and said, so what's a good time for me to bring the Victrola over?
Oh,
And
nice.
that's what it was, so there it is, yeah.
Say, there's a record on there. spare needles in the little needle bin.
Yeah, there's steel needles, yeah.
Probably works whenever you want to.
Yeah, we got some circus records and stuff in there, so it does, but,
I didn't want to crank it up. Doing it, so I was like, I like it.
Yeah, the springs are always going bad on those things. My family has one of those, my great grandmother.
yeah, the spring can get overwhelmed, which has happened a couple times, and, she said, yes.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us.